Hi, friends. Welcome to another week's Sunday School Time. We're so glad you have joined us. I'm Miss Denise, and I'm glad to welcome you to today's adventure. You know, even when we can't be together in all the same place, it's great to know that God's love holds us together, and that God is here with me in this room, while God is also with you where you are watching, and with all of our other friends all over. We're all held together in God's love. I hope you had the chance to share in last week's lesson video where we learned about how we can repair our relationships with each other when someone hurts your feelings or when you do something to someone else. It's so good to know that we can start over with one another because we all mess up sometimes. Well, today we're going to hear from Jesus about how God is willing to start over with us all the time too, and that God has forgiven us of way more than we have forgiven each other. God's forgiveness is like an eraser, or like canceling a gigantic debt, so you don't have to pay it anymore. And that means even when we mess up with God, we trust that we can start over. That's good news. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey everybody, we've got a brand new song to start our Sunday school time together with. They're words that you might have heard before. They're words we often start our time together in worship with. It's calling on God to be with us. And we know God's with us no matter what, all the time. But sometimes we need to take the time to set apart and to invite God, to say, God, we want you to be a part of this moment. So the fancy church word we use for that is invocation. That's a way of saying calling on God to be with us. And the words in this song, just like we often use in church, go like this. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Spirit, the three in one. So the song part, to sing along, goes like this. I'll sing it once, and then we're going to invite you to sing along right where you are. It goes like this. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Spirit, the three in one. Think you got it? Well then, we're going to invite you to sing along. We'll have the words right here up on the screen too. You can sing along, clap, dance, whatever you want while you sing along our invocation, inviting God to be with us here. And now, story time with Al.
Well, hey there, everybody. Glad you could be here today. I get to read a story to all of you today. It's sort of a picture book version of a story from the Bible, a story that Jesus told. So just get all comfortable right where you are, and I'd like to share this story. This story comes from, you can find it in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18. All right? Here's how it goes. Once upon a time, there was a king who was going to settle accounts with all the people who owed him money, like his subjects and his servants and the different officials and, whatnot. Well, so he's going to settle the debts that different people owe him, people who owe him money. And he comes to one, and one of the guys who's a servant for him owes him, in Bible times money, 10,000 talents worth of silver. That's a lot. Our best guess is that's the amount of money you would earn if you worked for, let's say, full-time work for 150,000 years. That's a lot of money, isn't it? So this guy, there's no way he could pay. Not even if he worked every moment, every breath for the whole rest of his life. He'd have to work for like 10,000 lifetimes. Maybe he'd be getting close. So the king's like, well, that won't work. I'm going to have to hire you out or get rid of you or do something to try and make some money back because you owe me way too much. And this servant just goes, please, 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 if you're patient with me, I promise, please, please be patient, and I'll pay you back. I'll pay it all back in full. If you'll please just be patient with me. What do you think is going to happen next? Well, the king is moved with that servant's plea, and he says, I'll tell you what, you don't even have to work it off. I'm just going to forgive it. There's no way you'd ever be able to pay me back, so I'm just going to forgive it. And boy, that servant was so happy. He knew he was going to get to stay in his family and his home and wasn't going to have to move somewhere else, and he was actually free from all that debt. It was so beautiful. He was so happy. He left the throne room just happy and skipping, and everything was great. Gee, I think I'd be pretty excited, pretty happy walking out of the throne room too if I had a debt that big canceled. Whew, what a relief. I wish the story were over now, but there's more. 'Cause see, that very same servant, he's walking out the door and he runs across another one of his fellow servants, somebody else who works for the same king. And that servant owes this first servant some money, not a whole lot, maybe a couple $100. And he says, hey, you gotta pay me right now. And the other servant says, well, please be patient with me, and I promise I'll pay you back. The very same words the first guy had said to the king. Please be patient, and I promise I'll pay you back. Well, that first servant, he said, no, I want my money now, and if you can't pay me right now, I'm going to get you thrown in jail. I don't know. Something seems kind of fishy about that to me. How about you? Well, the king hears about this, and he can't believe it. He says to that first servant, wait a second, I forgave you that huge amount of money you'd never be able to pay in 100,000 lifetimes maybe, but you wouldn't forgive the small little debt that somebody else owed you they'd be able to pay back real easy. He just asked you to be patient. I can't believe it. It's not right. If you got forgiven, you're supposed to forgive somebody else. Well, of course, at this point, Jesus points out that God is kind of like the king in the story. That God has forgiven all of us of a huge, impossibly big debt. God forgives us of our sins, all the ways we mess up all the time. I gotta be honest, it's not just like one thing I did wrong a long time ago. Every day I keep messing up. How about you? I bet if we're honest, each of us messes up sometimes. And that's sad to God. It's sort of like every time we mess up, it's one more thing we owe God, but God is amazing. God doesn't keep record of that. God just cancels. God forgives the debt. It's like getting out an eraser and erasing it all, saying, I'm not going to hold you against you anymore. But Jesus says sometimes we're kind of mean to other people. We're kind of stingy. We kind of hold grudges. That means when somebody else has hurt us and maybe they said they're sorry and they're trying to start over, we have a way of, I'm not gonna forgive them. I'm gonna always be mad at them. We don't want to forgive other people. But Jesus says, look, in the story, the guy who got forgiven this huge debt, he should forgive the other guy who owes him just a little bit, right? That just makes sense. In fact, Jesus teaches us when we pray, Jesus says, we're supposed to forgive other people just as God's forgiven us. Now notice in the story Jesus told that first guy, that servant, he got his debt already forgiven. It was a done deal, already forgiven. And then he goes along and tells this other guy, I'm not going to forgive you even though you owe me just a little bit of money and I got this huge debt just canceled. Something's wrong when we do that. Something's wrong when we're mean to other people, when we won't forgive others. And God's forgiven us. Now, sometimes, like maybe at school or when you're playing with your friends, sometimes people say or do mean things. I get it. It happens. When it happens, I know you don't want to immediately rush out and go play with the person who just made fun of you or said something mean to you again, maybe. But we don't have to go and attack them or call them a mean name back. We don't have to get payback. In fact, we could be people who say, I forgive, I'm willing to start over, And then the other person can earn trust back and show that they really are changing. They're trying to be kind again. And maybe we get a really good friendship back because of that. But it starts when we decide that Jesus is right, that because God's forgiven us of a huge amount, we can be people who forgive other people too. And this week, chances are there's going to be times when you get to be both the forgiver and the one who gets forgiven. There's going to be times somebody else maybe says something that upsets you or hurts your feelings or I don't know, does something that bothers you. And when they realize it and they say, oh, I'm sorry, then you and I, we're called to be people who forgive them. I know it's hard sometimes. Jesus calls us sometimes to do hard things. But it's also true, there's going to be times this week where, well, you and I are the ones who mess up. And our hope is going to be not just that God forgives us, but that other people are willing to forgive us too, because they know what it's like to be forgiven by God. Well, that's our story for today. I want you to think this week, if you're willing. I'll do it too for me. Think about ways that we're like the guy who got forgiven in the story, this huge debt, and we're free. And once you're free, our job is to set other people free, to forgive other people too. That's the only way we can keep trying again with people. That's the only way our friendships, our family relationships will last in life. So anyway, thanks for joining me for story time.
Every move I make, I'm making you. You make me move, Jesus. Every breath I take, I breathe in you. Every step I take in you. You are my way, Jesus. Every breath I take, I breathe in you. Waves of mercy, waves of grace. Everywhere I look, I see your face. Your love has captured me. Oh my God, this love, how can it be? La 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 la. Every move I make, I'm making you. You make me move, Jesus. Every breath I take, I breathe in you. Every step I take in you. You are my way, Jesus. Every breath I take, I breathe in you. Waves of mercy, waves of grace. Everywhere I look, I see your face. Your love has captured me. Oh my God, this is love. How can it be? La 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 la. Hey everybody, let's do a quick thought experiment in the middle of things today. Let's imagine that you tell me we should write out the very important message, love your neighbor, and put it right up here on the whiteboard. Sounds good? Seems like an important message, right? Love your neighbor, good. And you say to me, Pastor Steve, here is the black dry erase marker. Would you please write out the words, love your neighbor? Okay, and then let's say I get one of you to help me out, and I think, you know what, I'm going to take the first word, love, maybe I'll get around to your, but I'm going to ask you, would you write the word neighbor for me? Okay, so all right, so I'm going to get started on my part, love. And I think to myself, love, it's such a totally easy word to spell, right, just one syllable, and I just go at it super confidently, and I start love, L-U-V, and then you stop me, and you say, Pastor Steve, that is not how you spell love. And I go, what do you mean? And you think you were just rushing so fast, you misspelled it. You weren't thinking about how the word is actually spelled. And then you point out to me, hey, you know, it's actually spelled like actually out on your t-shirt, and you still totally blew it, even though totally easy word, and you still messed up. But then you say, that's okay. We can start over. You're not writing in permanent marker, right? And I double check. No, it's dry erase. And you hand me an eraser. And you say, we can start over. It's okay. So you let me have the dry erase marker. And you say, now let's start over again. Boy, am I relieved. Well, meanwhile, I'm so freaked out about having misspelled the word love, I turn to the neighbor, the other person who I've asked to write the word neighbor, and maybe they get started and they start writing, and they think, oh, maybe it's like a horse, N-A-Y, and I see that they've misspelled neighbor, and I start yelling at them, and I say, you don't spell neighbor N-A-Y, no, what kind of a dummy are you? Who would possibly make a mistake like that? And imagine I'm yelling and yelling, and now I'm causing a ruckus, and I'm making sure everybody sees what a foolish mistake. Oh, look, they spelled neighbor N-A-Y. That's not how you spell neighbor. Don't you know how to spell neighbor? Well, maybe not, because neighbor is a tricky word, right? Neighbor actually is N-E-I-G-H-B-O-R. That's complicated. A silent G, whoever heard of that? That's tricky, right? And me, I just made the pretty boneheaded, even more obvious mistake of misspelling love. That was an easy word. Where do I get off yelling at somebody else because they made a mistake, huh? Here's the thing. When someone gives you the chance to start over again and erase a mistake and says, that's okay, we can start over, we're called to show that same kind of grace to other people. A lot of people have forgiven me over the years because I've messed up in a lot of ways. And then sometimes I notice I get really, really rough with other people, really harsh, and decide I can't forgive them when they've made little piddly mistakes that are easy to make, where I've just done something completely boneheaded. Well, the point of all this, Jesus tells us, is God gives us this gift, like an eraser. It lets us start over when we make mistakes, but then I'm supposed to hand this to the next person who needs it so we can start over when they have made a mistake. The whole point of forgiveness isn't about keeping score, about who's got more forgiveness than whom, or who's racked up more points than whom. It's about erasing so we can start over, so we can get back to what we were supposed to be doing all along, which I'm pretty sure was to love your neighbor. In this life, there's going to be lots of times you and I mess up. God gives us a chance to start over, and it's a free gift, like an eraser is meant to allow us to erase the mistakes and start over. And then we're supposed to pass that along to somebody else, because then we start over and we get to the actual work we were supposed to do all along, loving your neighbor. Thanks for this thought experiment.
Shine, let it shine.
thanks for being with us today. Just like we did at the beginning of our Sunday school time for today, we're going to have a special song to close this time. And it's not like we're sending God away. At the beginning, we invited God to be with us, knowing that God's with us already, but especially inviting God to be here in this moment with us. Same thing as we leave. We're not saying God go away, but as we go into different places to live out our lives, to go to school and to play, to have time with family, time with rest, time to share God's love with other people, we're trusting that God will go with us. So these are ancient words, a blessing that we call a benediction, which is just asking God to give us God's presence as we go. And the words, again, I'll sing it and then invite you to join in the next time around. The words are words you've heard in church before, probably too. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord's face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. So to sing it, it goes like this. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord's face shine upon you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Want to try along? You're welcome to sing along with the words up on the screen. Dance, clap, snap your fingers, shake, hit a drum, anything along the way as we ask God to go with us now out into the world.